want to come back, Alan Smithers?
Yeah, I mean, the problem I have with skills and competences...
Sorry, I wasn't talking about skills. I think skills are quite a narrow thing. Competencies are about dispositions, about ways of thinking, about attitudes, as well as about skills. And they seem to me to be profoundly the things that industry needs. And if we're going to create employable future learners, they need to have these emotional as well as skill-based dispositions developed.
I was going to say skills and competences. And the trouble I have with them is that they have a now you see it, now you don't quality. I mean, if someone knows how to discover about the world scientifically or historically, and they accumulate a body of knowledge, you can see that it's actually happening. But when I see skills and competences taught in schools, it tends to be a project, and various things are done, and then somebody comes in and says, I discern that these skills and competences have been developed. Really, this is a rather vague way of going about it. Now, I agree that literacy and numeracy are fundamental. Whether we call them subjects or skills, I don't really mind. Unless people can handle words and numbers properly, they don't have the start in life that we want everybody to have. I would just say, though, let me just round off something. Life is about much more than employability. You're wanting to open up the possibility of living a life, one of which is working, but that isn't the only aspect.
Okay,
so if you define it totally in terms of employability, you're narrowing down the experience far too far.
Okay.
But let's take this point of, that you made about the kind of ephemeral nature of competencies. In my experience, when people acquire little tiny nuggets of knowledge in a narrow subject base without understanding any possible relevance of that, the likelihood of them retaining it is very, very low. I mean, I think, again, I don't know anecdotal, but I think of my own children, I ask them how much they can remember of the knowledge they were taught in a traditional curriculum in year 7 and year 8, now they're in year 10 and year 11. It's minuscule, because it wasn't, as it were, on a washing line. It wasn't associated for them with problem solving. They didn't acquire a set of skills which they felt they could use in the world. They got little nuggets of knowledge, they remembered them for 3 or 4 days. Because they were of no use, they then chucked them out.
I want to hear from some of the students in our audience. What I kind of want to know is, do you think you spend too much time learning things? When you know, things that you can easily look up on a computer? Yes.
Yes, I agree with that. I think that we need both the physical and the mental education system. We need both the literacy and the other subjects, the core subjects. We need those, as well as we need to be prepared for the future life, as in for the jobs and all that. I think we need both of the parts, as both they were saying, and if we only get one part, we will only be able to do. I don't think we'll be able to use it in future life as well as if we were taught both the parts.
Sarah Khan, do you think too much time is spent trying to learn things or memorise things effectively that these days you can get very, very easily on the end of a computer?
I haven't been in school, so I don't know how much time they actually, for ages haven't been in school, so I don't know how much time they do spend doing that. However, I think it's a very important skill to have. I live in the 21st century, I'm a business person, I meet young people all the time. I've also managed young people who've come out from university or be at school, and I have to say I am absolutely appalled at the level of basic literacy and numeracy skills that they have, and that's really disappointing. I'm all for learning the core subjects. I believe you should learn English. I think you should definitely learn maths. You definitely should learn science. You should learn whatever you want to learn. However, the way it's delivered has got to change. You know, we live in a world of modern technology. Writing an essay for, writing an essay about Shakespearean plays is very different to writing an email to a prospective employer. They are different skill sets, and you do have to learn how to do both. But you also need to know how to spell in a letter. I can't believe the basic errors that are sent to us from young people. They don't know how to spell, and they've got spell check on the computer.
Yes.
I spent the last time on a project where I was part of a team of students who organised our own business, and we went to a market with our business to sell products, and that experience was so amazing. And if we can open that we could open that for more year groups, so lower year groups, because I'm in sixth form, and if we can open that for lower year groups, for them to have that experience of what it is like to run a business, like develop their entrepreneurial skills, then that would be more beneficial, and they'll also learn how to write letters, as you said, Sarah. Learn how to write letters and emails, because we had to do that as well, write up to businesses, and we had to do lots of research. So that helped with on the practical side, and that also helped with our researching skills as well.
Mick, can I just come to you lastly? I mean, and I just wonder if you find it depressing in a way, this debate, because what you quite often get is a lot of concentration on basic skills, literacy, numeracy, and we all kind of take it for granted that that's what we want to achieve in the education system. Or we get, you know, and you need to be ready for the world of business. You don't get an awful lot of talk about thirst for knowledge, you know, in between, you know, intellectual endeavour, you know, history, geography, politics, you know, science, all of those kinds of things, and that's what you've got to concentrate on in terms of the curriculum.
We've got to concentrate on all of it, and subjects are important aspects of learning. They help us to organise knowledge, people understand them, they know where they came from, and they know where they lead, though it is very complicated as subjects divide into smaller subsections and more specialism. We want youngsters to engage with it, which is why we have to endlessly find examples of opportunities for youngsters to see why learning matters. And that's why some of the aspects of competence are really important. What employers need in the future is an important aspect of growing up, as is the youngster understanding just what they've got to cope with in the world of adult life. Coping with their own teenage life is a massive challenge for many youngsters. And somehow we've got to make the curriculum be all things to all people. We do want scholarship. We want youngsters going into a subject in depth, seeing the joy of the subject, seeing the beauty of it, seeing the effect it can have on them. But we also want youngsters to become competent and realise how important it is to put an email right, because they're trying to affect the audience that they're writing to, or that they're performing for, they're dancing for, that they're playing music for. They're trying to persuade people and helping things to move forward. And that's why the Opening Minds programme and programmes like that do have an impact on young people. They can see the importance of what they're doing and where it's going. The work with businesses and employers that many places now undertake in school really does show youngsters ways forward that make sense in their lives. And it's the link between the two, not the separation, that we should be exploring.
OK, we're going to move on, but for now, thank you very much indeed. Well, there's already been a lot of change over the last few months. We saw the scrapping of Key Stage 3 testing. We've got curriculum changes, diplomas, and of course, the primary review that is set to have a huge impact. So let's concentrate on primary education for a moment. Chris Sluck, now, you're the head of a primary school in Enfield. How do you feel about the primary curriculum and its suitability right now?
Well, I think the primary curriculum for the 21st century has really got to deliver two things. One is a balance between that subject and competency argument, which we've just sort of had. And definitely we need those competencies. We need to bear in mind that the children in primary school are not going to leave to the world of work until 10 years, 14 years. And if we just look back over the last 12 months, this is the amazing changes that happen. If we imagine what the world is going to look like in 14 years, it's quite clear we have to prepare children to be active learners in their world so that they can cope.
This debate we've been going on about discrete subjects versus competencies is, you know, even comes down to 5- and 6-year-olds.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a key one that's there. But nobody is suggesting in primary school, and by the way, that subjects are going to disappear. I can't believe there's many primary schools that are going to give up on literacy and numeracy. But the recommendations in the Rose Review, I think, of 6 areas of learning are a very welcome rebalancing of the curriculum. And linked to that is the second issue of flexibility, which has slightly been hinted at here, because what we need to do in the 21st century is personalise the curriculum, actually make it meet the child rather than the child meet the curriculum. And in order to do that, we need some of those flexibilities. And I think the Rose Review and the suggestions in there will provide us with some of those flexibilities.
Katie Ivans, you against flexibility and personalised learning?
No, not this sort of flexibility. No. What is being proposed here is that Jim Rose says that I think it's all stripped down to 2 subjects, literacy and numeracy, and everything else is negotiable, I think. Children do actually need I think so. I think it's areas of learning, yes. And children do actually need to learn, they need to begin to be taught history, they need to begin to be taught geography. They certainly need to begin to be taught science. If they're very fortunate, they might have a school which could start to teach them a foreign language. They need all this before they go into secondary school, when they should be good and ready to learn the subjects in a much more expanded and much more developed way. So I think that Jim Rose's proposals, which I think are very unfortunate, given that he's tried to secure literacy for our children, and I have to say I praise Jim Rose for this, but I think that his proposals are very retrograde proposals and could be very damaging for children.
You wanting to come back?
Absolutely. That's a complete caricature of what actually the primary review is saying. It's saying nothing even like that. Jim Rose is absolutely clear that there needs to be a balance between subjects and cross-curricular teaching, and it's a very reasoned and coherent argument. And it needs to be said that, actually, if you read it very carefully, Jim Rose is also saying, actually, that children need to learn a second language in primary school. So your issue about that is very, very clear in the review itself.
Matthew Taylor.
I mean, I always find it charming that people who campaign for real education seem to have difficulties themselves comprehending texts, but I think that this is the point here is how do young people, no one's saying that children shouldn't learn about history, for example, but is it best to learn about history in a lesson called a history lesson, or is it, for example, fantastic to do a project about where you live, which is about the weather, people who live there, the work that goes on there, and you get into the history of the area through that way, because you're actually trying to develop a full understanding and appreciation of where you are. Now, you know, we all want to teach history. The question is, how do you package it up? And the other point I think is very important to make briefly is that teaching knowledge through competencies and subject through competence is very demanding. We find in opening mind schools, for example, that teachers find it much tougher than just standing up at the front of a class and delivering the national curriculum the conventional way. And that's partly what went wrong with these kinds of ways of doing it in previous times. It was done in a very sloppy way. So let's not think that a competencies-based approach is somehow letting teachers off the hook. It is actually a much more demanding way of teaching if it's done properly.
Alan Smithers.
I mean, from where I sit, Jim Rose made a very brave attempt at trying to specify without specifying. The problem he confronted was there was too much in the primary curriculum. And so he's come up with these areas of experience that could mean something or nothing. This is the kind of problem you get into if you try and set out the whole curriculum. So I don't think there's any doubt at all that learning how to handle words and numbers, learning how to behave and be a responsible member of society are the vital components of primary education. Beyond that, you need to organise it for the particular circumstances, the particular children. You need to trust the professional competence of the teachers.
Okay.
So concentrate on the essentials, and then, which are hard enough themselves, and then build out.
Philip.
Well, I think it's clearly absolutely essential that primary education helps children learn to read and use number effectively and write. I mean, those things are absolutely critical. They're the foundation of everything. But I think this whole discussion is missing two really important things. First of all, any curriculum is a selection. Subjects versus competences is nonsense. You're selecting from a subject. You do world history, modern history, ancient history. It's all a selection. What schools have to do, or the national curriculum has to do, is make the best selection possible. That's the first point. The second thing is the curriculum is not just what happens in lessons. The curriculum is the wider life of the whole school. And many of the things we're talking about are actually delivered through the quality of the relationships and the learning and the mixture of the two in the whole school. And it's the competence approach that helps you join those up.
Okay.
I'm absolutely for subjects, but in a context where children are developed as whole people, and I think we've missed all that.
OK, thank you. We're going to take a short break now, but still to come on the big debate, we'll take a look at the classroom of the future and what it means for the curriculum.